Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. We're going to be talking about the history of the North, and it's a big one. So we're going to let the ladies introduce themselves, and we'll get started. Thank you for coming.
Hello,
Ashley.
everybody. My name is Iron Underneath. Excuse
Okay,
my
hold on.
voice.
I got to mute. Hold on. Okay, that's my fault. Go ahead, hon.
No worries. I'm Ashley. Hi from the Iron Underneath. Excuse my voice. I've been sick for a week, but hopefully you can understand me okay. I'm so excited for this discussion. It'll be a great one. Steffi?
Hi, everybody. I can't wait to talk about all the kings in the north, Barrow Kings, Marsh Kings, Kings of Winter, the Red Kings, everything. Okay, so I guess let's get this started, eh? Guess we can start with the Barrow Kings. The Barrow Kings were from the Barrowlands, self-explanatory. They claim to have been kings over all the first men, hence the name, the first kings of the first men. Supposedly, they allied with the children of the forest and allied with the Marsh Kings, my bad, the people who are closest with the children of the forest. And later on, singers say that the Barrow Kings warred against the Kings of Winter, north of the Barrowlands, Torrance Square and House Tallheart, Proud and Free, in the 1,000-Year War, but the ruins of the first men indicate that the conflict lasted 200 years. This is found in an Asha chapter, as well as the World of Ice and Fire. When the last Barrow King submitted to Winterfell, the Starks received his daughter in marriage. The Dustins claim that they are related to the Barrow Kings, and in a passage called Passages of the Dead by Maester Kennett, while serving Lord Cregan Stark, mentioned a curse that was supposedly placed upon the Barrows and anyone that would try to rival the Kings of Winter or the first kings. So
Yep, Barrowlands. So, the Barrowlands, I've always been so interested in the Barrowlands and the First King concept. And I know, the ring in Lord of the Rings and the first king, that it always makes me think of that, which I love. And it also makes me think about the Barrow Mounds in Ireland and in Scotland. Ireland and Scotland, just if you look at aerial photos of it, you can see these mounds like moguls on a ski hill. So it's kind of amazing how they're just buried like that. And I have a lot to say about that, but I'll say it later. I'm just really excited to talk about the Barrowlands. I really, and the Boltons, I find it fascinating. So, Nan, is there anything you'd like to say before?
Yeah, hon. I found it very interesting. You know, they say that the rusted crown upon the arm of the House Dustin derives from the claim that they themselves descended from the first king and the Barrow Kings who ruled after him. And then you get this here curse, and that no living man rivaled the first king. And this curse made the pretenders to um, 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 made them grow corpse-like, and their appearance as if sucked away their vitality and life. This is no more than legend, to be sure, but the Dustins share blood and descent with the of old seems sure enough. Now, they are originally first men. They spoke the old tongue. They still believed in guest rights. But is this first king somehow related to the Starks, because if they weren't, then it seems like that curse would apply unless the North itself was divided, and the Barrow King wanted the first king wanted to be king of all first men, and so is a dilemma in my thinking.
I'll jump in on that. What is it? When it came to like the Starks in the North and these like them taking a daughter, a daughter, a daughter, but then when it comes to, I think it's the War King, they take two daughters, insinuating that it was for an older brother and then a younger brother almost. So it could be that there was kind of like a rivalry, right? Like kind of how there is like House Grey Stark, right? Who ruled the Wolfstan. So it kind of seems like they were taking each other and they were kind of like swapping like their children like continuously in order to get these supposed like magical gifts that the children of the forest might have bestowed upon them, such as the way Bran is getting it right now. So yeah, so that's my input on that. There could have been two.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing about the Red Kings and the Barrowlands that I find really interesting, you know, the concept of the first king, and I think you were about to say it, Old Nan, is that affect the Starks. That it would, if they were the kings disputing this first king or taking the crown of winter. So might have affected them, but they're not corpse-like in appearance. That's more House Dustin and Roose Bolton. So it would seem, you know, the Dreadfort is, or Barrowton itself is actually right at the foot of this barrow mound of the first king. And what I find kind of interesting about that is that in Celtic mythology, there was a first king of the Tuatha De Danann, who are very much like the children of the forest, the first settlers of Ireland. And they had a king named Dagda, also had a harp made of silver and gold, just like Rhaegar. And this harp controlled the seasons. It played a song of sorrow for winter. It played different songs. He played different songs on it, and it would only play for him. And it was the son of the same, that no one was to challenge his kingship. And it's also put on them that if somebody challenged him. So it makes me think that you know, the Boltons really and the Dustins really are that are suffering the curse. So I find that really interesting, and I'll expand later. I'll let somebody else talk for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Old Nan, did you want to go? I felt like I heard you for a second.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so when it came to the Barrow Kings and the Dustins, what I found like really weird was, I'll admit this right now, like off the get-go to like everyone that's watching, I do not agree with the timeline. None of it makes sense at all. It's when you read the World of Ice and Fire book, they literally say that when the Andals invaded was during the Age of Heroes. So it's either A, the time is condensed and the kings are actually the amount of kings, and it's just migration, and proves that the Southern Kings or Central Westeros has more kings compared to the North, because that was the last like spot that you could go. So basically you could have, how can I put it? You would have one king here, and then by the time they moved up a little bit, there would be 3 kings here. So that's why you have things like House Gardner having more kings, and the Duradon line, like having more kings, and then the King of the North, like despite the crypts being so vast, there's only X amount of crypts. Like they never also explain the lower levels, like how many lower levels are there? Like, are you just preparing for the future events? Because they did say in the book that they pushed them down. But anyways, it's just my rant. I don't agree with the timeline. As for the Barrow Kings, what I found weird is how they allied with the Marsh Kings, the Red King, the Red Kings, and the Kings of Winter. And for me, if the World of Ice and Fire book is being truthful, and the Song of Ice and Fire book is as well, this could mean like the Southern invaders could easily mean already invading. So it's not just the Age of Heroes that you're dealing with, the possibility of these Southern invaders, but it could be someone else, like House Teak or House Duradon, and like all these other houses. So you basically, like, I kind of tried to condense it a little bit more. So you have the House Fisher, who were kings of the Riverlands, House Bracken, House Blackwood, House Mud, and then you have House Justman, which is Benedict. Benedict Rivers was the bastard of both House Bracken and House Blackwood, and that's how they came together. So in order for me to like make sense of these Southern invaders, I'm just gonna explain my theory, and hopefully it works out. So, okay, House Towers is the one which these tales is speaking of. I wholeheartedly believe this was the house who held Moat Cailin before becoming extinct by the Kings of Winter. Although I can't ignore that there's a Walton Tower who took Harrenhal and a Walton the Moon King Stark. House Tower is either a cadet branch of House Tower or a house sworn to them, possibly out of debt, respect, or trepidation after building the High Tower, followed Bran the Builder or his son Brandon, or Brandon of the Bloody Blade, all the way to the north. That this house could be associated with the pirate that lived at the Raven Reef. And he could possibly be the Elder Race, which the World Book comments on. Another clue is House Bulwer. They rule from Black Crown, which is extremely close to the Citadel, High Tower. And if my suspicion is accurate, it could be possible that after defeating House Bulwer, the Barrow Kings took the Black Crown, and it is honored by House Dustin within their sigil. Another clue, and this is from A Dance with Dragons, John 8. One was very little like the giants in Old Nan's tales. Those huge savage creatures who mixed blood into their morning porridge and devoured whole bulls, hair and hide and horns. Maybe Old Nan isn't talking about the giants which John is referring to, but rather referring to the title which the Barrow Kings held, the Kings of the Giants, and to the sigil of House Bulwer, bull skulls over blood red. In agreement with these tales, John hears that giants don't have kings, that they're vegans, which is displayed by 1-1, and the rest of the Dustin sigil, the axes, could have come from the Andals, where the Andals originally originated from, the axe, in northern part of Essos, just east of Bravos, before the Andals moved to Andalos, becoming a sort of origin story for the sigil the Dustins have. And that's it. That's my theory.
I always had this feeling, you know, with the Boltons and with Roose doing the leeching and everything, and his appearance and everything, is that when they became possibly the Red Kings and tried to be the Red Kings, that possibly this could be the curse that may have passed down to Roose, or some of his actions along the way may have caused it. But the impression, my feeling is that it was the first men, and because they say that the first men were hairy men, and that they were possibly But going to Moat Cailin, um, here we are, Moat Cailin, and it was raised roughly 10,000 years ago by the first men. And they had, and you're talking about that you're talking about here when it's got the three towers of Moat Cailin, Steffi. Because we've got the children's tower, and then we've got right here, the children's tower. Now that makes me think it's a tall, slender tower, and it's only half of its crown. The legend has it that the children of the forest called upon their gods to send the hammer of the waters to smash the neck from the children's tower, and that makes me think that these here were in league with the children. The children even had their own tower. So this is definitely, into my way of thinking, in the or the first the beginning of the first men's coming here, that a lot of these first men have the children, like you were saying. And the Starks and the Barrow Kings must have been in league together, or there's them not to have gotten disease. But it seems to me like it's just got to be in the time of the Age of Heroes, because the Starks didn't even come to their fruition until after the Long Night. That's what brought them together and made them as strong as they were. And everything changed in the North at the Long Night. That's all.
I'll jump in there for a second. Okay. But when they were writing the World of Ice and Fire books, it said particularly that the Marsh Kings, the Barrow Kings, the Red Kings, and everything. So we don't know if the wall is technically up yet at this point, right? It doesn't really clearly state that when it comes to the Barrow Kings. Like, if it admits that they fell after the Long Night, right? And after the wall went up, but it doesn't clearly state when they fought these southern invaders. So it could be just, like you said, the first men warring against each other from other people, like from the Riverlands, or from the people that migrated from Dorne and the Reach and upwards and so on. But I don't know, like, when it comes to the Long Night, like I said, I feel like the story is a lot more condensed than what is being said. Like, for me, you're talking about the children of the forest. Like, Leaf is 200 years old. She's been living there, like, their people have been living there forever. And it kind of reminds me of Brynden Rivers when he says, like, trees grow weird. Like, so people who have, like, longer life, like, for a moth, it may be like a flap of, like, their wing, but to them, it may seem like an eternity. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So I feel like the timeline is being exaggerated to prove a point, almost.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There's such a major discrepancy in the timeline, and such a major discrepancy, enough of a discrepancy about iron, and when it was introduced to Westeros. It was said it was by the Andals, but it's been said by Maester Luwin that it wasn't, that they brought steel. And it's this really, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where it could have been someone, they were metal workers, they're metals, but they didn't iron. It was one of those things where somebody was forging steel and some charcoal dropped in there, and they went, oh, that's how things happen in the world. Without it, if all this black iron we see so much of, just like the Crown of Winter was made out of this black iron. So it's very confusing. Yeah, and I think that it makes me think that the Maesters are covering something up. That's really what I think. That something happened that they don't want to write about. A bit like the Night's King story.
Yeah, that was my thoughts, because I kind of like I kind of dug into the Iron Islands really quickly right before this. You ladies know why. But you're talking about the Iron Islands, whole thing is reefing, and then they have the iron mines. So if they live during the Age of Heroes, you'd expect them to have iron. You'd expect them to work it somehow. Like, it may not be as good as the Andal's iron because they've been mastered. The Rhoynar mastered it, then they mastered it on top of that, and then they came to Westeros, which made the first men master it entirely differently. So for me, there's so many discrepancies in the timeline itself. Like, it's not funny. It's aggravating, actually. You ladies know how I feel.
Yeah, it's thousands of years. It's really frustrating because it really does give a big discrepancy about when the Andals actually came and if all of them came at that time together, if they actually even when they arrived. So, and when the first men started to intermingle and intermarry with them. I mean, it really was a north-south thing for quite a while, as far as we've been told. Starks marrying Blackwoods and and marrying Manderleys. So it's a little bit, it's confusing, to say the least, yeah. It is.
Well, I take it.
I just wanted to... Please. Waiting for you to come back.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was just thinking that, you've got the ages, you've got Bronze Age, and for them to have bronze weapons and a bronze crown and all this stuff, then they had to have had knowledge of working metal of some sort. Maybe it wasn't the use of iron, but they had knowledge of making making weapons. They had knowledge of how to make bronze, and that goes along with our own Bronze Age, and then you get the Iron Age and so forth and so on. But to me, that makes me think that it is a long time. They have a long time before even the Long Night. So a lot of this stuff was probably going on, this intermingling, because they had already made the pact. So the pact was made, so they were probably intermingling before the Long Night. And then when the Long Night came, that changed everything. You get the growth of the Kings of Winter and Winterfell and all that. That's all.
Actually, I'll piggyback off that quickly. I feel like in the show it explains this a lot better when it comes to the history than the books have this far, because we haven't gone in the Winds of Winter yet, which is already what the show is going into. But you remember how when they faced off against Ramsay Bolton, and then Jon came back and they're like, "Oh, King of the North, White Wolf, right?" Or whatever his name was. Basically, I kind of picture it like that. Like, because first he explained the threat. He's like, the truth is that the others are coming. You better fucking listen up, and we better join together. So for me, it's almost like the Long Night was not necessarily the biggest disaster, but it was like a prelude to it. So the Kings of Winter had to go from house to house, from region to region, to be like, hey, okay, you got to come with me. Because not all the houses in the north, which were from the Age of Heroes or the Age of 100 Kingdoms, were technically killed off. There was only a few that were technically killed off, which would be, not even the Barrow Kings were killed off. The Marsh Kings could have been. But like you're talking about House Towers was supposedly killed off. You're talking about House Amber was supposedly killed off. House Frost was supposedly killed off or like extinct, whatever the hell that means. So it's almost like, but then like you were saying yesterday, Nan, House Slate, they don't have a, like you brought up how they became vassals in the Age of Heroes. It doesn't say like the reason why. It doesn't say that there was like a war between the Kings of Winter and then House Slate. Like to me, it would seem foolish if you're trying to rule the North to have a fight with every single person who is in the North. If you get what I'm saying.
I do, but there's one thing that I did find, and it said that it seems to start, in my impression, was that it seems that they had a foreshadowing of the Andal invasion in the distant future, and that was the urgency to conquer the North and to unite it against the southern invasion of the Andals. Because if they came in and started cutting down more weirwood trees, that would broke the pack again already with the first White Walkers. You see what I'm saying? So it's, to my way of thinking, everything started and hinged on that long night. The fate of the North, the eventual fate of the North, came about all because of the long night. It shaped and molded the shape of the North.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know personally. I'm not sure. That's a good it's a good theory, because I don't know why they were, marrying the entire North, conquering the entire, had to do with the Andals, or if it just had to do with them exerting their power and, taking the lands they need so that everyone's safe, because Moat Cailin was the safe place until Winterfell was built, and then Winterfell became the safe place. And Moat Cailin, it's like the Blackfish, when he first saw it, he went, "This is Moat Cailin," because it's falling down, and it was such a stronghold. Situated, I think, is more important than the castle itself, and it's definitely a castle that has the beginnings of a first moat, the beginnings of a fortified castle. So the thing that I found really interesting about the Crown of Winter is that this long night, because I feel like the oath that Mira and Jojen swore to Bran, they swore by ice and fire, but they swore by iron and bronze also. They're a really old house, so if iron and bronze, it makes me think that with iron, or they know iron, they've seen it before. I don't know if this oath old. It doesn't seem like they've just kind of mixed the words around or added iron because they're giving now a vow to Bran. It seems odd that they would say bronze and iron, but what I found really interesting about them saying that is that swearing by bronze and iron is swearing by winter. I hadn't before. Bronze and iron are the metals of winter. This is from Catelyn's chapter in A Clash of Kings. It says, having the crown of the kings of winter, that it's surmounted by 9 black iron spikes wrought in the shape of long swords. Of gold and silver and gemstones it had none. Bronze and iron were the metals of winter, dark and strong to fight against the cold. So it obviously had iron long ago. It's confusing. And where is the crown? I'd really like to know where the crown is.
Yeah,
Steffie,
that was what I found too. Like that there's so much proof within the books itself that say that it was kind of mixed. Like on top of the World Book saying that the Vale of Arryn was, or the Vale was taken over first by Andals, then they expanded and did whatever. But you're talking about there's only X amount of house bronze kings in the Vale. There's like one that's mentioned, that's it. And you have like how many Starks that are mentioned? Like what is it, like 12, like close to 15? And that's also leading up to like Robb being the young wolf who is also king. So yeah, like the whole Andal, like iron and bronze, like it kind of, as soon as the Andals invaded the Vale, like it to me, it all became like like it all overlapped. That's all I could say. Like you put the Age of Heroes and then you put the Andals right on top of that. Like maybe there's like a smidgen of like right when they started, right when they were warring with the Children of the Forest and the Pack, but it's so small because it happened like so quickly. Like that's the only way I can explain it, because you're talking about Bran the Builder and Brandon of the Bloody Blade, who are the founders of the house, and then you're talking about almost like the Wolf's Den is the next section, and they're like Theon Stark is already warring with people from Andalos. So it's a toss up for me.
Well, if they're originally, some say in the World Book it's hinted that they may be, like I said, the hairy men from Ibbenese. And the one place it was, they originated in the Acts. Oh, here it is. They're akin to the Ibbenese. That it is unknown whether they originated in Ib and moved west, or originated in the west and were pushed east. So it's a toss up how long they've been there. You know, so if they came from the Ib, then they have knowledge of the Andals, I'm sure. That may be what pushed them back west, if it's that were the case. But it's still, you're right, really are messed up. They really are. So, and I think they're doing that, like you said, deliberately. You said that the other day. And it's almost like if they give away too much, then they'll give the story away.
Yeah. I find this Oath to Bran by Jojen and Mira so interesting. I just want to read it because it makes me feel like almost like a vow of knighthood. Sounds like knighthood, and it sounds like a vow, you know, from a vassal, but it sounds like knighthood. I'll just read it. To Winterfell we pledge the faith of Greywater, they said. And heart and harvest we yield up to you, my lord. Our swords and spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help our helpless, and justice to all, and you. I swear it by earth and water, said the boy in green. I swear it by bronze and iron, his sister said. We swear it by ice and fire, they finished together. It's almost like, it seems to me like that hearth and heart and harvest we yield up to you, my lord. Spears and arrows are yours to command. It's almost like a knighting. You know, like they believe in Bran to. And I just thought that was kind of cool. I mean, it's not like they can knight somebody, but just saying that I thought was kind of, I love the way it's written. I really do. It's almost like there's a little more there than just a vow.
Yeah, it kind of almost sounds like a swearing in ceremony, like kind of like the ones that like queens and kings go through in like England even today, right? Like they have that swearing in ceremony, and then it's like all hail the queen, long live the queen, right? Which is like almost like what they do to Robb Stark when he is crowned king. So yeah, but theirs is more rooted, right,
Yeah.
into the Age of Heroes and the invasion of the Andals and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is. The only thing besides that I have to say about that is that iron was around for the making of the Crown of Winter, like I just pointed out, and the ancient swears by both, and the others hate iron. So is this because they encountered it in Essos, or is it because they've encountered it in Westeros, which would be before the Andals came, and it binds them back to death, kills their body. So even if they're alive, it kills them, and possibly another, or able to be another, a white at least. And if they are dead, it gives them also the chance to rise again if the iron is taken away. I'm starting to think they're revenants, actually taking their own bodies, the ones that they lived in to begin with, and that they're not
Good
just
idea.
roaming dead people, that they're actually revenants. They died for killed them, and they come back for vengeance. That's kind of what I'm starting to think. I found something in Norse mythology that kind of blew my mind. I'll talk about that more in a minute. To finish off that part about the reeds, it sounded like we're near to a thing that's for life, like an element, like it's that important. So Kings of Winter are described by Theon, I think. The kings, on their brows they wore stone crowns. Actually, I think this is from the World of Ice and Fire. On their brows they wore stone crowns. Torrhen Stark, the king who knelt when the Spring King Theon Stark, Brandon the Burner, Brandon the Shipwright, they're all in the crypts. Jor and Jonas, the crypts, and we don't really know where or how they're set up in the crypts, but those are the ones that have been mentioned, that have actually been mentioned in the books. I have written down, I find King Jonas. They were the last kingdom of the first men that continued to rule the north after the Andals invaded anyway and took the southern kingdom. So they had the entire north, whether the Andals came or not.
Oh, Ash, can you okay, so what was really interesting about what you said is like the bare amounts, right? And the reverence and the like being like awakened. And I could see that because I think it was the last video, the Dance of Dragons videos. We talked about the reason why you can't bring dead people back, and what Leaf says, like you don't want to like call those people, like they might come, like, and we debated on why they might come back as something else, like something that is vengeful. So that's interesting. On top of that, you said war stone crowns. I find that very interesting since Bael the Bard, like his name was Sigrid of Skagos. Now in the old tongue, the translation is the deceiver of stone. So that's very interesting that you have the kings beyond the wall claiming to be the deceiver of stone. So that's very interesting.
I just want to say, as far as the iron, if they came from wherever they came from, they had to have had old wives' tales and histories and things that we, just like we have, about iron and its properties, and they may have actually known about the properties of iron keeping the ghost or the the kings of the north, the kings of winter, in their crypts. But either way, there was iron in Westeros already. You know, they may not have known what to do with it exactly, but there was already iron there evidently. That's all.
Yeah, I think there was too. What I found in Norse mythology that makes me think that they're revenants. There's a being, it's in a different Edda than Ragnarok, but it has to do, it's the same, it's just another war. Time as the, so is, and I find this name kind of interesting too. It's Draugr or Draug, which is Draugr. Sounds like Drogo and Rhaegar mixed. And I thought that was kind of interesting. They were the ones that J.R.R. Tolkien used in Lord of the Rings. And they were barrow whites. They were very different looking. They were black with white eyes, and they would kind of float away. This in Again Walker. So we've had Neverborns, Night Walkers, White Walkers. These are Again Walkers, which so there's another word for it in Icelandic that means an undead creature. It can be traced back to Proto-Indo-European stems, the word rogos, which means phantom, and the word dregger, which means to deceive. And the Old Norse meaning of the word is revenant. And this is what it says about them. To be strong enough to draw the hugr, which is a Swedish word for will, which I found very interesting. So to animate collective will, collective consciousness will, or free will. To animate the hugr, it's Hugr, means to animate will. So the will appears to be strong enough to draw the hugr back to one's body. These reanimated individuals were known as Draugr. However, the dead might live again. They could also die again. Die a second death. Bodies decay, are burned, dismembered, or otherwise destroyed. They live in their graves, often guarding treasures buried with them in their burial mound. Buried most of the time with things that were important to them. They are animated corpses. Unlike ghosts, they have a corporeal body with similar physical abilities as they had in life. So older literature kind of makes it clear that a sea draugr and a land draugr. So it really does fit the others quite well. The under the sea patch face and his army, and the drowned god. It really does too. And they're noted as being able to drive living people insane by talking in their ear. Birds and animals, all living things they can skin change into. And for example, one of the kings caused birds who flew over his barrow to drop dead. I asked you, Steffi, the other day, wasn't there an instance or a couple of them in these books where ravens just dropped out of the sky? And I know it happened with Sam. I remember what the other time was. It was someone holding up a head.
Who did I say? I think it was Moore's crow food Umber, and basically he was perceived as being dead. So like a crow or a raven, and it says crow, but the thing is, like, it's still like a bird. But basically, it mistakes him for being dead, and it picks out his eye, and then he wakes up and he bites its head off. Right? So that's another instance of where these birds come flying down and attacking someone. Also, you also have to think about, what is it, the King's Moot, and that seagull that just keeps coming around, and like every time there's a good person like Asha or anyone that's good, like Victorian, who makes a claim for the throne, basically the seagull will squawk and like go down and attack these people, almost like to say, like, to give an okay, like to give approval. So that's definitely something interesting. And you also have the ravens at the Citadel, who also they attack each other. So you would assume that it would be swarms of them just fighting each other, the white ravens and the black ravens. So it's very interesting. Also, on that note, I am not like a mythology person like you, but you kick it out of the park. But I know the guys in the chat would probably know Skyrim, and how it's like a big RPG game. But basically, when the Dragonborn like is awoken in this person who kills the dragon, basically some of the missions are to go into these barrow mounds. And basically, the Droggers wake up, right, and to protect their treasure and everything. And then eventually, you have to get the power that the dragon lords of old hold. So it kind of relates to what you were getting at, that there is a will of the living, and then there is like these dead things which are resurrected, and they do have a vengeful source to their power, that they're trying to do something that we don't exactly know in the books, but in the game we do know. Yeah, it's very interesting. I agree.
Yeah, the Elder Scrolls in Skyrim actually totally led into some of this. I think he does draw from the Elder Scrolls a little bit. A little bit of
one thing
in there too.
One thing on the Kranich men, I mean the Marsh Kings. What was that I found the other day is basalt. That the Wolfsten was made with has basalt, which, as Steffi informed me, is a volcanic stone. That's also there at the Wolfsten as well. I mean at Moat Cailin. Or is it Wolfsten?
Yeah. That stuff.
Yeah, the strongholds in the north. I'm getting an echo. Okay, I'm good now. So the strongholds in the north, which would be Moat Cailin, the Seal Rock at the Wolfsten, which is now housed by the Manderleys. Basically, they put like catapults and those missionary crossbows and stuff like that. That's what's housing them right now. And then there's one at Sea Dragon Point, and basically all of them are made out of the basalt, which is volcanic rock. So, and also Winterfell is also made out of this, and I believe Storm's End is also. I could be mistaken about that though. Okay, so I have one more thing to add to the Barrow Kings for a second. Okay, so since I believe that the Andals and the Age of Heroes do overlap, I think the next Southern invader would have to be House Justman. I'll refer back to this when we get to the other kings in the region of the North. But for me, the proof of this would have to be House Hoare, particularly Cohor the Cruel Hoare, was in the same era as, I believe, Edric Snowbeard Stark. Also, he killed the sons of Bernard II Justman. So it kind of, since the Cruel, like he ruled all the Sunset Sea. He said that he's ruled from Bear Island to the Arbor. So you're talking about the whole western coast. So for me, it would have to be House Justman. I feel like that's the only thing that you could possibly think of. Also, I find it interesting that House Fisher of the Stony Shore. The Stony Shore is kind of near Mokalan. It's kind of like a loop that goes around, and then like the neck's there, and then the Stony Shore is right there. And supposedly during his reign, people fled the shore. So if you're gonna flee something, but if you're not gonna flee something, you would obviously die, which could have resulted in their death during the Age of Heroes, technically.
Okay, what do y'all want to go to next? Which house? One thing about the Boltons, we're talking about the Kings. The enmity between them and the Starks is said to go back to the Long Night itself, and the wars between them and those two houses is legion. As we know in the book, as in the series today, we're just now getting Winterfell back from the House Bolton. And this has been going on since the first Long Night. So, there's been always something between the Red Kings and the Starks as well.
Yeah, they're the Red Kings and the Starks. Yeah, I mean, there were really, the thing that kind of interests me is that there was a part where I can't remember which king of winter it was, that they said Theon the Hungry Wolf, that they said took entrails out and wrapped it around spits. That just makes me think of the Red Kings and Royce the Red Arm. And I don't know how true that is, that Theon the Hungry Wolf did that. It was kind of he wasn't too good of a man, He did a lot of questionable things, and I don't really know, we don't know if we can trust this history book as much as just take it at its word because it's written by maesters. So he sailed all over to Essos and back, and he also tied somebody to the prow of his ship, an Andal chief. Killed a lot of people, a ton of people in the Andals villages. So it's one of those things where I wonder if they're not telling all the truth about the Starks, or if they're telling, kind of making the Boltons not look quite as bad as they do. Because really interests me about the Boltons is that then we get Rogar the Huntsman, who seems like a pretty normal guy. It seems more like a King of Winter than he does a Bolton. And he's even got a different name, that's more like a name that reminds me of a Royce name or something. And what was I going to say about him? I'll get to it in a second. What's on my mind is the basalt is it's the volcanic rock that hasn't yet completely gotten smooth. When it completely becomes smooth, it's obsidian. So it's the oily black stone, I think. Black candles, we've got the obsidian daggers, we've got dragonstone, so many things that are the 5 forts, maybe, that are made out of the oily black stone. It makes me wonder if this is the oily black stone, and that maybe the children of the forest might not have built Moat Cailin. It's saying earlier this week that children, it seems odd for the children to be able to build a structure like that. And so it makes me wonder if there was another race that did the ring forts. The ring forts in history are also very, it's kind of hard to pin down who built them. Monks built them. Some think people from the Iberian Peninsula built them. Some people think we have no idea who built them. Old. Some of them date back to the Neolithic era. It's one of those things where Moat Cailin is built of mainly wood. Same exact way that these barrow mounds are built. They're built with wood in the earlier days, like thousands and thousands, 5,000 or more years ago in our world. In this world, it's more than that. So then it becomes stone, but after a while, the grass grows over it, things like that. It starts to go into the earth. So it reminds me of the barrow mounds, the long barrows all over Ireland and that part of Europe, because kings' burial sites, kings' tombs, and they're built in a labyrinth sort of fashion to do a Freemason-like walkabout so that you pass each king. And each one is built as a monument recording device, recording of winter, summer solstice, or the equinoxes. They're all built for different equinoxes. The one that Dog Does buried in, it's the Newgrange tomb in Ireland, and that one has the same exact wood building. The way it's built is the same exact way as this first is described. And the other thing that's really interesting about these is that scientists have done studies on them now, that where they're built, the crops grow faster, quite a bit faster, like very noticeably faster. And they've built a few of them to see, and it does every time. So that's interesting too, that you could, maybe these were built, so many of them. Yes, and yeah, and the decomposition, Steffi, thank you. It's true. The decomposition has so much to do with all this. That's why I always talk about alchemy having to do with this, because decay, decomposition, all of it is such a big part of alchemy because it's such a big part of the making of the world. So it goes back to the primeval ooze, back to the basalt, back to, things like Moat Cailin. So I'll let someone else talk for a minute.
If I may, I was going to say that, the sea stone chair was already there when the first men came. So maybe these Ibonese or hairy men or whatever were already here, went back, and that may be in the accounting for some of the differences in the timelines. Maybe some of that got included in there. But regardless, there were places already built when the first men came, it seems. The sea stone chair is evidence of that in itself. Adds to the messed up theory of the timelines. And another thing I found when you were talking about the hungry wolf, Theon Stark. Now you've got Greybeard Stark. He lived 100 years and reigned almost that long. But then you got, and you don't see, you see some of his stuff, but then you got Theon Stark, and you got huge tales of what he did. So these kings of the north are living longer and then being replaced real quickly, or something like that being the difference in it. Or it could be, like I said, that there was people here and they left. And that's kind of what it's hinting at when they say that the Ibonese possibly came from the West and were pushed away.
Yeah, the hairy men part always throws me off a little bit and makes me think about uh the fact that they might just be men, you know. They always call the giants of Jotunheim the giants men, you know. And that race of people called the Fomorians who came after the Tuatha De Danann to Ireland, and they were also described as hairy men. It's interesting because they kind of remind me of orcs when you look at them of mythology of these creatures, the men, but they were also said to be Jotun. So they were said to be missing an arm, missing an blind in one eye, or missing an eye, missing a leg. They were said to be kind of, they were said to be what I picture as a lot like an orc. And they were ruthless. They were a lot like Ironborn reaving and taking wives and all that kind of stuff. That's really what they did. So the hairy men thing throws me off. I always wonder if they're just Andals who are men. Even the kings of winter are described as very hairy men. So
Okay, I'll jump in.
Also, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Old Nan, keep going. Keep going.
I was just goes back to, I was going to say before we get off the Red Kings and all that too, that when I was looking through there, the lineage of the Starks, and they bred with all these houses, but they bred with females from all these other houses, but there was not a Bolton in the list of females. And it kind of made me wonder, even down to when you get to Rogar, the huntsman that you were talking about earlier, Ashley, when he did swear fealty to the King of Winter, he evidently didn't have any daughters. But he sent his sons to Winterfell as hostages. Men were crossing the narrow sea. So, I think like I said the other day, it might be silly, but what if the Boltons can't have girls and all they have is males?
that's a really good point. It really is, because that would be a part of the Barrow curse. And it also might tie into is. I wonder if it does. Because be a powerful curse. If it really was a curse that was true, shows every sign of it, as does Barbary Dustin. I don't know that Ramsay does, but I don't know if Domeric did. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting theory. What is it that the Boltons can't produce girls? It'd be interesting in the Winds of Winter to because in the show supposedly I think Fat Walda, she gives birth to a boy, but maybe in the books it might be different. She might give birth to a girl, and maybe it's just a cycle, and maybe the girls just keep dying due to the wars that are surrounding the North. It could be possible. As for the Boltons and the Red Kings, first of all, I find it very strange that they're so close to the Shivering Sea, and you have the ice dragons' tails from there. You have giants dancing in the light, right? And it's very it suggests a lot of winter-esque like themes almost, and a lot of these things are from tales that from ships and stuff like that. So that's very interesting. As for the Barrow, like, or the Red Kings themselves, their section with history was a little more easier for me to kind of get at, such as Edric Snowbeard Stark. During his time, he had troubles with a rival house, which would be or a rival descendant, which would be House Greystark. And the only accounts that you could really find about House Greystark is when they rebel with the Boltons against the Starks themselves. So for me, this would definitely be Royce II, one of the Red Kings. And then later on, it also explains that how, again, they allied with the Boltons, or another time, right, against the Wolf's Den. And you're talking about the next king that supposedly within that line is Royce IV, who is also called Red Arm for pulling the entrails out of prisoners and stuff like that. So it could also relate to how Brandon Ice Eyes Stark is also associated with doing that as well. As for Theon Stark, you also have, he's supposedly the last Red King. He gave it up during the Andal invasion, which happened at the Weeping Waters. And then you're talking about Belshazzar. I probably butchered that name. You probably know who I'm talking about. Look it up. He when Rogar gave up the Red King title during the Andal invasion, he gave hostages to the Starks, and I'm assuming that this one is one of them. And when the Pink Pavilion happened, when they defeated the Rape of the Three Sisters and all this stuff, I believe that's when the Starks enforced that they weren't allowed to like flay their enemies. So when it comes to stories like Bale the Bard, it makes me question that it is before, like it was during the time of like the Marsh Kings and the Barrow Kings and the Red Kings and the War Kings and Gavin Greywolf, who I also think is a part of House Greystark. I think that's pretty indicative of House, like the Grey, and then the Grey Gavin Greywolf. Like it's kind of like how Jon is named after his direwolf, and then it also alludes to the fact that the Stark sigil has a Grey Wolf running on it. So it just all ties in together. But yeah, but as for the barrow mounds, it seems you brought up how like the structures aren't like as time goes on, like they start as wood and then they go to stone. I find it very strange that Barrow Tun is only made out of wood. There's no stone in that whole entire thing. So it kind of alludes to the fact that there is a curse placed on this, and people are afraid to even fight against them, almost like they still have this curse, or the curse wasn't passed on. So I found that interesting as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think the curse has let go. I think it's been there for quite a while. And like we said earlier, it's not affecting the Starks. So it's affecting the Boltons. It's definitely got something to do with them trying to take Winterfell, them taking Winterfell, you know, and skinning Stark princes and things like that. I found a little bit interesting about the way this is worded is that it says that, sorry about the papers, I've got to write this stuff on the computer, is that from the world of Ice and Fire, it says that ballads that the singers sing about Stark's driving giants from the north, the Gavin Greywolf Gavin Grey Wolf being felled, who was a skin changer. The fact that they wrote felled is kind of interesting, that he was felled by a king of winter. Only the words of singers that such kings and battles even existed. That's from the world of ice and fire. So that would be the children of the forest, I would think. So it wouldn't be, you know, a bard, it would be the children. So I think it would probably be true. You know, these wars happened, which tells us that the Starks, there's no way the Starks could live and rule this long without being ruthless. And we know there has to be something in their past that's ruthless, and here it all is, and there's got to be more. I wanted to wait till the end for this, but I'll just say it really quick and then we can get back to it at the end. I was looking at the list of the Kings of Winter and their nicknames. And what I found really amazing is that the timeline go, or the family tree of the Starks goes in the world of Ice and Fire, the first two man and woman of House Stark was Benjen and I think Lorna Locke. It was a Locke. And there are two Benjens, Kings of Winter, Benjen the Bitter and Benjen the Sweet. Huh, that's weird. I mean, Benjen starts the clan, and then Benjen is such a mystery right now. You know, the name Benjen is kind of an interesting name because you can break it up into two. So it's Ben and Jen. So bittersweet. It's like that's the bittersweet ending is going to come with Benjen, or it's going to come by Benjen. At least it ties in there somehow. I just thought that was really cool. That came one after the other.
Yeah, touche. Like all that stuff was amazing. Yeah, Benjen, bittersweet. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, one of my subscribers who I just love, Peter Fontaine is his name. About it was a while ago, so I'm having a hard time remembering, but there's an old sci-fi movie about a rat named Ben who had a friend. You know, it's very strange. It's really relates to the Rat King. And so there's a sweet, very sweet song at the end of this bizarro kind of like, you know, the fog kind of movie and we know George loves that kind of stuff. So it's like, this is a really weird tie-in. Now there's Benjen the Bitter and the Sweet. I think it's going to end in this way where, you know, it's kind of like a little sad, but great at the same time. I think Lord of the Rings did end like that. For me, it did. Excuse me. But anyway, I just found that kind of cool. And then I also found it cool that Walton Stark was named the Moon King. And that Edwin Stark was named the Spring King. Or, you know, if I don't know, I didn't have time to look into exactly when these Kings of Winter ruled, but named Eddarian Stark, the bridegroom. And that interested me a little bit. Like, what does that mean? And it sounds so much like Eddard. And these all came around Brandon the Bad, the Bitter and Sweet. So I don't know. It's just go with the seasons, which Stark King is the strongest, you know, during the winter, during the spring, whether it be a false spring or not. I always look at fairy tales too when I'm looking at this stuff, and there's something, you know, the War of the Wolves really made me think of a lot of different fairy tales, Grimm fairy tales. And there's a lot about there's one about two clans of wool, well, a clan of with another clan, but it was more like the wolves were trying to protect the lesser animals that needed protection from. It was actually a dog and a cat who their owner was going to kill them because they were getting old. And his wife went, no, they're just sweet animals. You can't kill them. The cat'll mouse again, I swear. And so a fox catches a mouse for him, and, you know, they bring it back, and it's like, oh, the cat can mouse again, so he can stay alive. So I wonder if these things will start to happen in the winter. The people who are getting threatened, you know, with out might just be, you know, people might help them a little bit. Like I can see Sam doing something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that too. When it comes to like the kings that are like uncertain like eras of like of their lineage, I'm pretty sure Jorah Stark also has to do with Bear Island, because the only Jorah that we know of is from Bear Island. Right. So I'm pretty sure that when Lauren Greyjoy did like attack Bear Island, right, and then was overthrown, I'm pretty sure that whoever married him was Jorah, and yeah,
definitely.
But sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Go ahead. I was just agreeing.
Okay. Okay. So since we're doing the Stark Kings, I guess we've moved on from the Barrow Kings or the Red Kings. I guess I'll do the founder.
Your least favorite.
I don't like any of the Stark Kings. Okay, that line is like, it's not funny anymore. Like it's aggravating that they can't give me a time and a date. Like, do not have a calendar. Like, honestly. But when it came to Bran the Builder, of course we know that during Edric Snowbeard Stark that he built the outer wall. So there could be like Brandon Ice Stark could technically be Bran the Builder by that account. But when I was researching him, it also came across that Garth Greenhand had a son, and his name was Bran of the Bloody Blade. And basically, he killed a bunch of children at the forest at the Blue Lake, and like the name changed to the Red Lake. And every time I kept like thinking about this, and I'm like, I have no idea like what I'm gonna write about this. I have no idea where it's going. And then I went to research Garth Greenhand and who his daughters were and the region for the Red Lake. And it's owned by House Crane. And supposedly there's the person who originally founded that house was Rose of the Red Lake, or Blue Lake at this time. And when I kept hearing that, all I kept thinking about was it's just, hold on, let me get to it.
Are you talking about the fairy tale?
Yeah, I'm talking about the fairy tale. Hold on, I'm just getting to it.
Snow White and Rose Red?
Yeah, it was like that. Like, so it kept reminding me of Rose and the actual Rose itself. And then I kept thinking about the Blue Winter Rose of like House Stark and Jon Stark or Jon Targaryen. And for me, like, if this ties into anything, it had to be Del Labard. And because when Bale takes the daughter, he leaves the Blue Winter Rose in its place. I'm getting an echo. But so all I kept thinking about, and I'll read the passage and like why this ends up making a little bit more sense. It's from John the Clash of Kings, and it's said by Ingrid. When Lord Stark returned from battle and saw his mother saw Bale's head upon his spear, she threw herself from a tower in her grief. What I'm getting at is that the blue winter rose that fell is actually rose of the red/blue lake. Like when you break it down, like if you were to choose, like if the flower is subjective to rose, then the rose is who they're talking about, which is from House Crane. And when you research like Garth Greenhand and his children and the gardeners, it almost mimics that of the North in their stories, right? Like what's another one? How his what am I thinking of? I think it's John Oak, and how like he throws a seed and then it like sprouts up out of the ground. It's kind of like that of Bran and going to see John. So it was very fishy to me, like that whole story. Like it, if I were to tie it to anything, it would have to be a southern region, which is proving that the founders of House Stark were that of Garth Greenhand, and he could possibly be the first king of the first men. But maybe when Garth chose his heir, he didn't choose his eldest heir, which could have possibly been a bastard, which would have been Brandon of the Bloody Blade, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a little fishy.
Yeah, I do get what you're saying. And I do, he was the no, he wasn't the daughterless, was he?
Yeah, he was the daughterless.
He was the daughterless.
So it brings to question if there is, because of course what Ingrid is saying isn't verbatim to what the story was originally. Like you're talking about many people when they read the Bale the Bard story, they think that because she says the word King's Road, it means that it's after conquest. For me, the whole entire story doesn't sound like it is. Like where he walks into Winterfell. You can't just walk into Winterfell. There's like a whole outer wall to it after conquest, which is indicative to that they haven't built the outer wall yet. So yeah, like if you're going to invite people to just come play, like you're talking about not many bards came to play. Like Sansa even says that there's no fun here at Winterfell, right? And when a bard came, like I was just so eager to like it doesn't make sense that the Bale the Bard story is after conquest, and that this could be indicative of that.
If I may, I also found something that kind of that goes back to this rose. Everything in winter, this rose keeps appearing from time to time, and I found. Hold on. The Stark bent the knee to Aegon the First, and that not all the Northerners accepted his decision. And that those that didn't accept his decisions, they went into exile across the near sea and formed the Company of the Rose. Mind-boggling when you get to the Blue Winter Rose that not only Dany saw, but, you know, Lyanna, and now you've got the Blue Lake, you know, turning into red, and then Bale the Bard. So the rose is very significant. This Blue Winter Rose is very significant to the North, and it makes you kind of wonder if at some point if we may hear from the Company of the Rose in the winter.
Yes, and because I see them as like the Rosicrucians, the Rose and Cross. That's sort of what I see them as, and maybe a little bit of Freemasonry in there. Faceless men, I don't know. I think it's the Faceless Men myself, but this sort of my opinion of the Faceless Men a little bit. and I'll say why in a minute. Plexi asked a really cool question where she asked if there was a if there was some kind of a cycle that repeats with these Kings of Winter's names. And I'll look further into that because I do think there is. I see that. I see one there that's like repeating at certain times, and then there are names that come up later, you know, like Roderick. And then there's a Brandon almost every couple hundred years, if not more often. So it's a really cool question. I wish I had a better answer. It's a great question. You always ask the best questions.
Plexi sent that, right?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Always good question. So the last thing was that it says that where is it? I'm sorry. That they forced the Blackwoods to flee, and we know they did. The thing is all of these tales, especially the Kings of Winter, and like the one you were just talking about with the Red Lake, Blue Lake, Children of the Forest being killed there, so it's now called Red Lake from their blood. Every time I look at a fairy tale, a grim fairy tale, of course they're always grim fairy tales, and I grew up reading those, and I remember them well. And there's a lot of them that almost every one of them that I looked at having to do with this that we're talking about here, some like a frog or a fish, something becoming a prince. Almost every one of them ends with a prince that was hidden, or a prince that, you know, was maybe even, as far as this story goes. I thought that was kind of cool because there is a hidden prince the whole time. So I'm sure it refers to John.
The Black Woods of Raventree I thought was very interesting. And, you know, we talked a little bit about it earlier. And that there is runic records that support their claim that they ruled in the north. They ruled the God's Wood, the Wolf's Wood. Taken. And they were driven out. And what I gathered from it is that they were driven out before the arrival of the Andals. It's my thinking on it. Because they were well established and considered kings in the Riverlands, you know, at time during the Andal invasion. So they had to have already been established in the Riverlands, and they had to have been forced out of the north. My thinking is before the Andal invasion.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute. Yeah, there's so many things that kind of confuse me there. Like, well, I won't go into it now. I'll just go into this, what I was saying, but something else that's really interesting. The Rosicrucians, didn't they believe in some sort of world reformation to come, like a spiritual awakening or reordering? I think the rose symbol symbolized the mother aspect of reform, and it did. It was the keeping of Mary, or well, of Jesus. So, and it also had more to do with just that. It had to do with the fact that Jesus was of a bloodline that came from long before, that Jesus was not the first solar deity we've had. He's a long line of solar deities. So, all the first one. And so I think the Rosicrucians were the ones that kept that, the witch bloodline. And, you know, that's the blue bloodline, red bloodline.
And that's the blue rose, which is carrying on all the way through to our story today.
Exactly.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk, ladies, about the Ward Kings. And there is archival evidence in the Night's Watch at the Night Fort that Master Aemon found, that talks about the war for Sea Dragon Point, and that's where the Starks brought down the Ward Kings and his inhuman allies, the Children of the Forest. When the Ward King's last redouble fell, his sons were put to the sword along with his beasts and green seers, while his daughters were taken as prizes. So the conqueror being the kings of winter, which one? It doesn't, it just says the Starks brought them down. The Ward King, that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the skin changing, the interbreeding with the children of the forest that possibly could have happened before the first long night. And then you also have the like you said, the reeds, and these are big children of the forest related houses, and they've married into both of these houses. And I think it was before the first long night, because it seems like after that's when the Starks really put forth the effort to try to conquer the North. And that's all I got on the Ward Kings. Y'all got anything else on them?
I'm sorry I dropped out. I think I dropped out like right after Plexi asked that question. And the similarities between the Stark Kings. Okay, so you have Harlon Stark, and then you have Carlon Stark, who became the king of House Karstark. So you're also talking about the Arlon. Is it like it's just a different like almost like it rhymes almost. So it's definitely something to look into if it's related. Like, is there another Gavin Greywolf that since he's with House Stark or House Grey Stark, would there be an equal to that of House Stark, of Gavin? As for the War King, in order for me to explain my War King theory, I have to explain. I have to go back to the Barrow Kings a little bit and the Dustins and the Ricewells. Supposedly, there was a house of that ruled the Rills before House Ricewell, and that house was House Ryder. And House Ricewell's sigil. Hold on, let me just look it up here. Okay, basically it's a horse's head. I think it's black on a black horse's head, eyes and mane red on bronze with black border. Now, when I looked into what House Rider was, like I tried to I couldn't really find anything. But then I decided to look into the origin of the word itself. And rider means basically a knight mounted on a horse, which also goes into what you were saying earlier, Ashley, with the Barrow Mountains and everything like that, which is pretty cool. It's a career path, basically. And then it also went into like horse breeders, so mounted horse breeders. It's kind of like House Clegane, where they were kennel masters, and then they saved the thing, and that's how you have the hound being called the Hound. It's a nickname based upon his sigil. So, and then when I looked into the word again, ride means, what is it here? It basically means to clear a land of any wood, right? Like and then to add the R means to live upon that wood, like upon that clearing. So I tried to look with with the sigil. Did it match any other sigils that I found? There was one in the Reach. There was another one, but it was like they all came into existence before, like after Aegon's conquest. So I was like, that's not really helping my point right now. But then there's also let me look at here, House Bracken, and their sigil is of a red horse, and it's kind of on its hind legs. So I looked into that region. Now, Stonehenge, the region is very forest populated, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense, right? So I tried to look to their rivals, and supposedly, what's the name of this region? It's called the Blackwood Vale. And basically, it's cleared of everything, the Blackwood Vale. You see it in a Jaime chapter in A Dance with Dragons. And he's like, this place has been, hold on, here it is. Hold on. It goes back to the Age of Heroes. Blackwoods were kings in, hold on, wrong quote. The castle dominated the broad, fertile valley that maps and men alike called Blackwood Vale. A vale it was, beyond doubt, but no wood had grown here for 7,000 years, be it black or brown or green. Once, yes, but access had long since cleared the trees away. Homes and mills and holdfasts as risen where once the old oaks stood tall. The ground was bare and muddy and dotted here and there with drifts of melting snow. So when Jaime literally says axes cleared it, that's also referring back to the Dustins and their sigil of the axes itself. And so you got to assume that House Rider of the Rills could have possibly been House Bracken, in my opinion. Like if you were to look at it like that, right? Like that maybe like how can I put this? House Fisher of the Stony Shore could possibly be related to House Fisher of the Riverlands. You get what I'm saying? Like maybe just like House Justman, because it was a bastard or something, they took on a different name, and this became the house. Now, supposedly in the Blackwood Bracken history, Hoster Blackwood says, it goes back to the Age of Heroes. The Blackwoods were kings in those days. The Brackens were petty lords renowned for their horse breeding. Rather than pay their king his just due, they used the gold their horses bought them to hire sell swords and cast them down. So you have this educated kid telling you, yeah, they were related to some kind of horse breeder, which is exactly what the name of ride or rider means. So it just ties into everything, and I feel like that theory is pretty much spot on. Like if I don't mean to.
I like that one. But you know, that would also explain a lot of the feud with the Brackens and the Blackwoods. You know, that explains a lot right there.
Okay, also on top of that, supposedly House Rider submitted themselves to the Kings of Winter. So I'm almost wondering that if they were sent there by the Kings of Winter, and that kind of relates to the War King theory that House Blackwood is the War King himself and is the skin changer. And it kind of goes back. Hold on, let me just give me your thoughts first on it.
Okay, the tree, that Raven tree Hall, isn't that it? The Blood Raven's home. It looks like that tree has actually been salted at some point. You know, for it to have died and turned petrified like that, it seems like it may have been actually salted. The land may have been salted to cause that. maybe axes brought them down, but once they did that, it may have been salted.
It may have been. The brackens poisoned it.
That's my thinking. Yeah,
think
that the brackens probably
salted.
poisoned it.
Yeah. Done so with salt. You know, ties into the Night's King again, and why they might not. It really does make a difference, I think, to the others. It's that tree really. It's interesting with the colors, you know, of the tree when it's covered in ravens. The tree actually not being alive and having so many ravens in it. It's almost like there's something going on with even maybe Blood Raven going to the north and going to this tree. I wonder if he was following something that might not have been true, or if he knew exactly what was going on and then lured Bran in. Or, like I always say, if it's not, none of that's true at all, and he's really is trying to help the realm, like he always did when he was Lord Brynden Rivers. So, I don't know. It's that tree really. I gotta look more into that tree. I tried to this time. I was so sick I couldn't retain any information. So, but that tree and the fact that they moved. The Blackwoods are going to be so important, I think, in the times to come. Bran, Jon, Bloodraven all have Blackwood blood. So, you know, I think even the Hightowers, don't they also have some Blackwood blood? And
I think so.
So did the Valerians, didn't? I'm not, maybe that, I might not be right on that one, but there's something about the skin changing and the Blackwoods. It seemed to come from somewhere else. We thought maybe Ned's mother or something, but I think it comes more from the Blackwood blood.
I think it comes from the Krennic men and the Lord Kings. I mean, that's the initial ones with that warging ability and the skin changing and all. And they definitely some mixing with the children of the forest there. So yeah, to my way of thinking, it's other Blackwood is that was there during all that time. So then possibly too, you know, there's Blackwoods in all of those folks you named.
Yeah, there's something definitely.
The chat.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's fine. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah. Referring to like House Blackwood and stuff like that. Along like I think it was last video or 2 videos ago, we mentioned the rings of trees, and like that got me into thinking into House Blackwood and stuff. And supposedly in the 1700s, there was the coldest winter ever in Europe, and it was called the Great Frost. And supposedly it turned the bark of the tree black, almost like it's singed. And then you're talking about the rings of a tree itself during certain ages of its growth will show it. So you wonder if any of the trees that are cut down, like the weirwood trees in the Riverlands, like such as the one that Jamie slept on, I wonder if they would show these rings, or if George R. R. Martin will show these later on, that there is a timeline and it might be distinguished within these trees. But for them, when it comes to the poisoning of the weirwood tree and the hard tree at Raven Tree Hall, the maester saying it turns to stone. I know Ashley said that it's kind of like Naga's bones on Old Wick. I think it is, and how that might have to do with something. But then when I think of Bael the Bard and how he's the deceiver of stone, it makes me not believe that the weirwood tree is going to turn to stone. It makes me feel like it might go black due to it being weakened during the actual winter or the next long winter, which is when the others come now. So it almost like a prophecy within itself, like the name of it, like House Blackwood. It's supposed to be a prophecy into the future, almost.
Right.
That's a good point. Good point.
Since the Blackwoods have their name, it's really interesting.
Y'all want to go on to the mountain clans? There wasn't a whole lot on them other than they're famous for their hospitality, and they hold guest rights sacred. And I think the mightiest of the mountain clans was the Wolves, and they're the fisher folk who dwell along the shores of the Bay of Ice. And their hatred of wildling is matched only by their hatred of the Ironborn. So there wasn't a whole lot on the mountain clans, but we do know that the Starks married into the mountain clans as well. So that's another one on there. Anything else on the mountain clans, ladies?
No, actually I do, but I want to jump back to the War King for a second, if that's okay with you, ladies.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to read for a second because I write a lot better than me just speaking. So I do believe that the War King was of House Blackwood. The most noticeable evidence beginning a Game of Thrones Bran 1, Ned to Bran. The blood of the first man still flows in the veins of House Stark. And we hold to the belief that the man who passes the census should swing the sword. If you would take a man's life, you owe it to him to look into his eyes and hear his final words. And if you cannot bear to do that, then perhaps the man does not deserve to die. Thus insinuating that they, the kings of winter, couldn't kill the War King or his greenseers, warged animals, etc. But I still believe that the daughters, being pluralized, were taken by the kings of winter. The kings of winter, pluralized, shout out to Kyle's fucking chickens, because he does believe that they were brothers, Brandon of the Bloody Blade and Bran the Builder. So that would go along with his theory and how the Starks actually developed their skin-changing abilities. However, I for one believe, just like I mentioned above, that these gifts are transformed through blood. Maybe a blood ritual is what caused these families to have these gifts, but it has some environmental conditions, such as drinking from a green fountain or eating weirwood paste. But for the most part, I see it coming from blood. Another clue is the whitewood in the Riverlands. According to the songs about the Andal invasion, carnivorous children of the forest appeared one night and set hundreds of wolves against an Andal camp in the whitewood, with hundreds of men slain. It is highly possible that the people controlling this army of wolves was most likely the War King or his equals. Although the World of Ice and Fire book doesn't say where the whitewood is exactly, I took a huge-ass grove of weirwood trees, better known as High Heart, or a huge-ass heart tree built on top of a mound, like the one found at Raventree Hall, would be a safe bet. Now, whether this all ties into Erig the Kingslayer is completely up to you. King Erig attacked High Heart, which was supposedly protected by First Men River Kings. House Fisher, House Blackwood, House Bracken, House Mud are your options of the First Men. Eric's men killed the children of the forest and cut down the hills weirwood grove, possibly being retaliation from the Whitewood event, where all the Andal men died. So, and supposedly from this story, basically Eric is not the name of the person, like the Andal that cut it down, but it's supposed to be an insult to whoever they listen to, which is probably House Bracken, which would refer to why House Ryder or House Bracken went to go hunt for the War King by the Kings of Winter, which would tie into my theory. And that's it. Yeah.
That sounds pretty good there, girl. Sounds
Sorry,
pretty
my
good.
mute button keeps. I think that's really cool. Nan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was
I
just
just wanted
agreeing. I think that's a good theory. I like it.
to. The only thing I have written down about them is that my traditions insist that they once ruled, well, we already went over this, most of the Wolfswood before being driven from their lands by the Kings of Winter, if Maester Barnaby can be trusted. So I think you're right. I really do. And I just wanted to point out the houses that were extinguished after the Ward King fell. His daughters were taken Wood, House Towers, House Amber, and House Frost, like you said before. House Frost just makes me think of Hoarfrost and about that house. And I know, Steffi, you had something that you had about House Amber that I think is really cool. House Towers just says to me that all these towers that were supposedly built by Andals or by Bran the Builder, ring forts mythology, mainly they're called lanterns for the dead. And I think this is why Ned built, he and Howland Reed built 8 cairns at the Tower of Joy, is because can't when you can't burn a body or you can't bury it the way someone would like, say Lady Dustin would have liked bones to be brought back, or him to be brought back so that she could have buried him. But what Ned did was actually a really thoughtful thing to do, was to take down the Tower of Joy and build cairns, because they're a lot like these barrow mounds. They're for the soul to be able to see. It's the same thing as the stones that tomb, like the entrance of it has stones with those spirals that we see all the time now. It's the House Massey sigil. It's covered with those spirals. And what is death, birth, life, circle of life? In there's always a place where you can see through the rocks. It's a special place so that the sun will come in that certain crack in the rock, and the ones that summer solstice, the ones that are built for spring and autumn equinox, are all built differently so that there's one. So it comes in and you can tell which time of year it is. Tower and those cairns, it's the body is, or the bone side of the cairn, and the soul is supposed to be able to see through the rock and see where to go. That's why they're called lanterns for the dead. These ring forts, because cairns very close to where a ring fort. So I just thought I'd bring that up because I found it so, and I thought that's probably why he respected his friend, and he didn't want to just leave their bodies there to tear down the entire tower and build cairns. So cairns, kings, or their loyal servants. So it tells me that these were the servants of the king of the north. What really should have been king in the north.
I'm sorry, Ash. You were like sort of skipping on me on there, so it might be just me though. Because I dropped out, so it just might be my internet connection is really weak. I'm sorry.
Mine too. Maybe I should jump out and come back. Just to see.
It comes and goes, I think. I wouldn't worry. Where do you want to go next, ladies? Skagos?
Actually, I want to go to what you were talking about, Nan, the mountain clans and kind of like the Bay of Ice. I do find that it kind of when you look at the Bale the Bard story and the Frozen Forward, it kind of reminds me of the Frozen Shore, which is like in the land beyond the wall, and supposedly, basically gods of winter ruled there. So I find that very suspicious that the son of Bale would go there to hunt for Bale himself. I just find that really weird. And that has to do with the mountain clans too, because if they're any way associated with Bear Island in any kind of aspect, or if these gods of winter were to cross the sea, I don't think they would necessarily go from Hardhome in that way. I think it would be a better idea to go from the Frozen Shore to Bear Island and then to, I think it's Dragonsea Point, which is basically the shortest distance. Like, why break through the wall when supposedly they freeze the ice? Right? So, I don't know.
I still think they're going to come in at Eastwatch, like we were talking about the last time. Ashley?
See if I sound any better. Does that sound better? Am I still breaking up? Good. I'm glad. We were talking about I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought completely. What were you just talking about? You were talking about the
Mountain Clan.
Mountain clans. Yeah, and I just, the mountain clans, to me, it's like I said a few streams ago, there's a few Tyrion chapters that begin with him screaming Valar, from his mountain clan friends, who I just love, Timett, son of Timett. But when he screams, there's a lot of Bran chapters and Jon chapters begin with the moon and talking about where the planets are, what stage the moon's in. And then of Tyrion's chapters start out with him yelling Valar, or for one of the mountain clans. And the mountain clans seem to just be absorbed into houses like House Stark or into other houses. But the thing about them is that they remind me of the warriors, like Vikings. They remind me of that. And Valar makes me think of Valhalla, and the Valkyries come to get the warriors off the battlefield. It's a lot like the long halls, in Winterfell or any castle, where they come off the battlefield wounded, whatever. But with the Valkyries, they come out and they choose which warrior is the hero, which one they want to bring back, and they take them back to the hall and they heal them, and they drink and they party all night long, and then they go back and battle the next day again. So clans always make me think of Vikings and warriors. I just think they're really cool. I mean, and I think they're going to play a part in the wars for the Dawn, because that Patchface rhyme about how he will lead them and they'll march in and out of the sea and back again, and they'll go under the eyes of the waves, all of that stuff. I think House Flint is that they go underneath. the flints might miss them, might stop them. I don't know, but I think that the waves and the eyes, the seeing of that happens with House Flint. Hopefully that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Well, there was actually a flint from Breakstone Hill that is extinct now too. There was a lot of flints. You got the Mountain Clan flints, and there's who's the other one? Steffi, help me out here. But the flints of Widow's Watch, but the flints of Breakstone Hill are extinct, and I have all the extinct houses. They're Amber, Greenwood, the Fishers of the Stony Shore, the Flint of Breakstone Hill, Frost, Greystark, Ryder Towers, and Woodfoot. So, and I don't have much on Woodfoot. But you going back to the skin changing thing, even Bear Island, skin changers there. Look at Mage Mormont and all of that. So that goes right on back to the Children of the Forest too. And then you got Roderick Stark, who won Bear Island in a wrestling match. So, from the Ironborn.
You know what's kind of great about about Bear Island is that this thing that I think the others come from, the Draugr, they're skin changers, but the thing that they're said to change into is seals and sea lions. Quite find, someone who into seals until I started to think about the Wolf's Den and Seal Rock. I always think that the others might have started out in the Iron Islands, and that kind of makes me think more that they did, because there's a part in the water, I think it is, where Asha's coming back up from the King's Moot and Justin Massey's with her. She just sees the shadows in the trees, and she knows it is, and she knows they're there, and she says, "Oh, I better get back up to the castle," but it doesn't seem to bother her. It's like she knows and has known for a long time and isn't really afraid of them. And that even furthers my thought that these are revenants who are taking vengeance on the people who harmed them or the people who killed them.
I want to put a shout out to Alt Shift X. He's got a very good one he put out. I think it was just today about Tormund and Mage Mormont. And he relates all the reasons and why and everything, and I thought it was very good. So that was very interesting. Chance, check him out. I did want to talk about Skagos a little bit, and Skagos they were considered the stone. Skagos in the old tongue is called stone. And they're, like as Steffi said earlier, they are stoneborn. And they are also the huge, hairy, foul-smelling folks. And most maesters believe the Skagosi have a strong admix of the Ibonese blood. And others suggest that they may be descendants from giants, clad in skins and fur, untanned hides, and they were said to ride on unicorns. And they're the subject of a lot of dark rumor, and it's claimed they still offer human sacrifices to the werewoods, and they lure ships to destruction with the false lights, like they did as was it Sisters, with the false lights. And another thing, they got the island of Stain store, and Stain the Skagosi went to, they call the Feast of Skane, and they wore with the fleet descend upon the smaller island of Skane, raping and carrying off the Scanish women, while slaying the Scanish men and consuming their flesh in the feast that lasted a fortnight. It's unknown if it was true, but the Isle of Skane remains uninhabited to this day. And it's always been my belief that that is where Osha took Rickon, not necessarily Skagos itself, but possibly Skane. So I thought that was good. And the unicorn horns, um, there is some evidence that there really are unicorns. Some of the unicorn horns are passed off as the porpoises with the horn to the citadel, but evidence that there are unicorns with the horns. And when they do trade, that's what they trade is they trade obsidian, pelts, and the unicorn horns. But anyway, I've always thought that to me that would be a good spot for her to have taken Rickon, and that if Jorah is going to find him, it's going to be on Skane, and Diet's going to be there one.
Oh, when it comes to the Skagosi, it kind of mimics that of what I just mentioned, the Bay of Ice and the Frozen Shore, and those like the river clan, the Ice River clans, right, from beyond the wall, they're known to be cannibals too. So it's almost like that, but when it comes to unicorns, and the science behind it, supposedly they were just one-horned goats. It kind of makes me think of like the Black Goat of Qohor, that deity. But for me, when it comes to the Skagosi and being trouble, and I think it was and destroyed their ships. It was one of the Stark Kings who destroyed their fleet, and them, you know, in A Dance with Dragons, I believe, or Winds of Winter. One of the lords mentions this. He brings it up. I think it's in Umber, and he says that the Skagosi are basically fleeing Skagos at this time, which would be the same time that basically almost Hardhome is happening. So you wonder if that has any correlation to why the Skagosi are fleeing that land. But for me, I don't believe Skagos, there's anything wrong with those people. I believe that they were a house, and that maybe it's a little more fractioned, such as the mountain clans in the north. But for me, I don't think they're as bad as they're made out to me. I think they should be more fearful of the Frozen Shore and of that section. I think when you break it down, like it's kind of like Moat Cailin and the Children of the Forest calling down the waters to basically flood the neck. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you choose such a broad area to flood? When you look at the twins and where the twins lie, that's a very narrow gap, right? When you're in A Clash of Kings, when Robb goes around that area, he says the other way is going to take 20 days. And he says going to the twins is only going to take like 4 days. We have to go that way, right? We have to make a deal with the Freys if we're going to get to Ned on time. Oh, Game of Thrones. So always get those two confused. But it's kind of like that, like where I don't see the reason like for that land. You kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do kind of. But as far as the Skagosi go, there's 3 houses on Skagos, and it's the Crow, the Magnar, and Stain. Magnar is also above the wall because you got the Magnar that married
Thames?
Alice. Yeah, of Thin. So is that the connection that you're trying to make there? Could be.
I don't know if that's the same, is it? I don't think it is. I wonder if that's the name of a king, of a leader king kind of thing, or if it's actually Thens. I didn't think it was, but I could be wrong.
As far as the what happened with them, it was Barthagan Stark, the Lord of Winterfell. He was called Barth Blacksword, and he was the one who finally got Skagos under control. Is that? I think that's who you were talking about, Steffi, too.
Yeah, that's the person I was talking about.
Anything else before we move on from the Skagosi?
Actually, I wanted to say something really quick just about the just so that we can leave the Andals behind. I wanted to just say this really fast. This is a cool tie-in from Greek and Roman mythology about Prometheus, because when I was thinking about you know, holding the world in your hand and holding the weight of the world on your shoulders as Bran and Jon do, there is what Atlas was the son of a Titan. He had a wife named bore 7 deities, and they were the Pleiades, the constellation, and they were also known as daughters of the evening. And golden apples that were a wedding present from Gaia to Hera and Zeus for their wedding. And supposedly are guarded by a fierce dragon and they come from trees in a garden far in the west, it says. And that they taste like honey and they're golden. And if you eat them, they can heal. And they're also, they have a youthful quality to them, like a fountain of youth kind of thing. And it made me think of Alaris Sorella Sand and the apple at the Citadel when she's saying throw the apple and she's trying to hit it with an arrow. I think of Prometheus because they were said to bring fire and iron, the Andals. So Prometheus was a clever trickster, like Loki, like a blood raven sort of figure, maybe. And he, of course, gave the humans the gift of fire and the skill of metalwork. And we know he was punished by Zeus and had his liver eaten out every day and regenerated at night. So that reminds me of a lot of different things, men on spikes, dreamers impaled, things like that. So just to finish off the Andals, that's all I really wanted to say, except for that the fruit of immortality, he tricked everyone, of course, and allowed the guardian of the apples to be carried off to none other than the giants. And but when they took the apples away, the gods began to grow old and decay. It's quite a bit like the First Men challenge. So the apple back. And Celtic myth says that they are the fruit of the gods and of immortality. So Arya eats an apple that's bruised. Apples. It makes me wonder, if there's some trees in Westeros, trees that we're going to find out about, or seems that there's something to do with apples and especially women, since they might be the daughters of the evening. That'll make it through the long night.
Yeah, that brings up what you were saying earlier with like the fairy tales, right? Of like Snow White and then eating the poisoned apple. Yeah, I can see that now. As for Prometheus, I definitely got that from looking up at the north and stuff like that. It was pretty imperative that they needed fire, like last hearth. Like how more blatant can you be with the fire, right? But yeah, just yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I could see that. As for the Night's Queen, we've discussed so many possibilities for this woman to be like the Barrel King, Rose, like the lists are endless. But
it just really makes me think though that all of this stuff makes me think that that's what's in the crypts of Winterfell is the Night's Queen. Like she's actually the fount. She's actually the elder of others.
yeah, I agree with you. I think her name was probably like Winter or Rose, and yeah, it's got to be like that. It has to. I have to. It's got to be in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really,
Yeah,
what else would be so important?
and that goes back to the roses again, and the company of the rose, and so many roses and that are associated with the North too. That's all for me.
Well, I'll jump back in there for a second. That also might be the reason why Winterfell is so warm too, right? If you're bringing up Prometheus and his children, basically, right? Then of course that would probably be the reason why Winterfell is so warm in association with that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, and it's also where people go for sanctuary, so it's warm, it's safe, and you know it reminds me. I don't know how many people have read Anne Rice, but there's a really cool thing that Anne Rice did, and she does a lot of working with real history in her writing, and she did something really cool with her vampires, where she had elders of the first vampires ever made. They were made by a spirit who pricked them, his vampiric blood, and they became the mother and father of all vampires. And they're thousands of years old. They've turned to stone by now, but they're still a lot. They're still, and one of the vampires watches over them, and they're called those who must be kept. And they're the basic parents of the vampires. So it's the same kind of thought for me. Like that's why a Stark always has to be at Winterfell. They have to guard who must be kept, the queen who must be watched doesn't get out.
It's like the Starks are holding vigil. They hold vigil over that. Whatever is in the crypts, whether it's the Queen of Winter, which is starting to make a lot more sense to me the more we talk about it. But yeah, it's something. It's got to be something like that. I agree.
Okay, how many children did Prometheus have again? How many did you say? Or like deities? 7?
Well, it was Atlas actually. Atlas, Prometheus. I don't know if it was Atlas that had a wife, and she bore 7 deities, and they deities, which means the sailing nymphs, deities, and they're also known as the daughters of evening.
That definitely makes sense when you think about this. Not only Game of Thrones and the actual Night's King baptizing the baby, kind of like touching him, pricking him. Like, is that? So I definitely got that from there. As for those that must be kept, I could definitely see that when you look at a Game of Thrones, like the actual prologue, and them laughing. It's almost like they're missing that figurehead to keep them in line. And the 7 definitely pays for the 7. Like, how can you not see that? And then,
yeah,
yeah, like it just everything. It kind of, yeah, it's mind-boggling. Like just
Yeah, I didn't even think of the pricking of the finger. That's really cool because that's to be in there too. That's one of the best of all of the fairy tales. There was something
But
else I was
didn't
gonna
you have
say.
didn't Snow White have 7 dwarfs?
Yeah, there's a lot of tie-ins there, and it all has to do with the prince. And a lot of apples.
Yeah, yeah, really.
that will probably be more interesting, like as we go like further south, especially the gardeners, right? Like the reach, where the like
Yeah,
plentiful food, like the fossil waste, for example, like that's gonna be interesting to tie into.
definitely. Yeah, love to see if there's 7 daughters somewhere.
Didn't Garth Greenhand have 7 daughters?
I
He
think
only had
so.
like a few. Yeah, he only had a few sons.
Yeah, you're right. I had that written down. I think you're right. And, I mean, yeah, Plexi's saying golden apples are also a symbol of chaos. They are. And they're also a symbol of oaths, traditions, and youthfulness. So it's chaos, it's like Loki plays into the chaos thing. Even the Formorians were said to the people who came to settle Ireland, they were said to be absolute chaos and cause chaos wherever they went. Baylor of the Evil Eye, who was one of them, when he turned his eye on the battlefield, complete chaos. So that eye was the evil eye that caused chaos and destruction. So yeah, there's a lot to do with that. And actually, that's really weird because now that I think about it, apples are red. These are golden. Those are the colors of Greenseer's eyes.
Well, you got green apples too.
Right.
So you got golden, green, and red apples.
Cool. I love that when that happens.
And then you got the 7 deadly sins to go along with that too.
The 7-pointed star.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 7 deadly sins are very important, I think.
Yeah.
To this story. I think it's part of the breakdown of society that onto the world.
Also, I have the Krennic men, ladies, I'd like to touch on a little bit here at the neck.
Yeah.
And they're swamp dwellers, and they have a floating island. Greywater Watch is situated on a floating island, and if that's not cool, I don't know what is. And but they're small, sly people. Some say that they're small because they intermarried with the children of the forest, but the maesters seem to think it's because of inadequate nourishment. Well, I'm going to tell you, I grew up on the edges of a swamp, and I'm just as healthy and big as can be. So, yeah, they may not get grains there, but they do trade. And so I think that the reason for their small stature is more the children of the forest. And also, I looked up one of the words that they were calling called fen, Fen. And it's a low, marshy, or frequently flooded area of land. A flooded fen is 35 acres of fen. Flat, low-lying acres of eastern England. They were formerly marshlands, but largely drained for agriculture in the 17th century. And the ecology of it is wet land with alkaline, neutral, or only slightly acid peat soil. and which is compared to a bog. And it comes from the origin of the Old English. So, yeah, as far as them not getting grains there, they may not get grains, but they can sure eat some gator tail there and frogs and fish. And you got deer and everything else that goes in a forest is actually goes through a swamp. You have deer in swamps as well too. So it's not just alligators and frogs that they're eating and fish. That was all.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting where the origin came from for that word. It's kind of like how the Reeds are referred, or the people in the Crannogs are referred to mudmen, which could be house mud of the Riverlands, right? It kind of ties into that a little bit. Like more, these words could have more than just one meaning behind them when they are being said, right? Such as giants could refer to the Barrow Kings, and etc.
Exactly. And I just wanted to mention too, really quick, that in the Stark lineage, there is a Wyla. Last name is she's a Finn. She's a Finn. Oh, and she was the mother of Lonnie Snow, and I just find it very interesting that there was a Wyla way back, and that this discrepancy about Wyla being John's mother or whoever Wyla may be. There's a Wyla Manderly, there's this Wyla Fenn, so it's not an uncommon name. I just, it blows my mind that there was a Wyla in the past in the Starks. So maybe it's one of those things where Old Nan or someone is telling a story about, the one bastard that was born to the Starks. Don't be like that. So when Robert says, what was her name? What was her name? Your girl that you had during the war, and Ned just says Wyla. It's like that just comes out of, the Starks knowing don't have a bastard, don't have an affair. Remember the story of Wyla. That's all I can ever think of when I see Finn.
There was one thing I found interesting about the Crannock men and the first Crannock men of old, and they saw their kings as the first among equals. They were considered equals, but the first among the equals, and that they were often thought to be touched by the old gods, a fact that was said to show in the eyes with strange hues, or even speaking with animals, as the children of the forest are said to do. And the last killed by King Rickard Stark, the Laughing Wolf, again the Laughing Wolf. So, this Laughing Wolf got around, or whichever one, they all got around, I think. But anyway, I thought that was good. That was very interesting, that they considered themselves equal, first among equals.
Yeah, I sort of would like to add in there too that if the Marsh Kings were annexed to the next and a daughter was given, that this blood would be within within Bran, like the bloodline. So maybe that's why he was chosen instead of Jojen and Mira, which would be proof that they weren't of the Marsh King's line, but another house or fraction within the Crannogs itself. Just saying.
Yeah, but Steffi, my thinking on that is, the Stark married the Crannock daughter of the Crannock, the Ward Kings. And yeah, there's that in there as well. But it wasn't the Ward Kings or the Crannock men or anything like that built up to be the kings of winter and the rulers of the north. It was the Starks that were somehow fated or given this task because of the first long night and what happened during that first long night. And even the Barrow Kings, their enmity with the Starks goes back to the first long night even. So, it's just something to think about.
I'm not saying that can you explain yourself a little better? Like, what do you mean, like, by the daughters? I feel like I missed the point on that. I'm sorry.
Well, the daughters were married to the Stark, right? And that would have been in the early days, correct? But my thinking is that when it came to the long night, everything changed in the north during the long night. That is when the children of the forest could have chosen someone from the Ward King's own line, from the Crannock men, but it was in fact the Starks who became the rulers of winter, the kings of winter. So there had to be something else in that Stark line to have made them, maybe they're more warlike and would have gotten the job done. I don't know why, but it seems to me that the children of the forest champions are and not a Crannock man or someone of the, the Ward King or something like that. That was my thinking.
Oh, okay. So you don't think that the daughters or these bloodlines that are being intermingled have any association with the Kings of Winter? Is what I'm getting. That they.
No, they do have association with them. Yes, they do. But this took place, my thinking is all of this, when it came to the long night, that's when the Starks got their marching orders to become the kings of winter, if that's one way to put it. And the children of the forest could have chosen some of the marsh kings, the ward kings, in that respect, but they were killed out. But you still have the reeds and the ones of the neck, but they chose a Stark to be the champion of winter. When you see what I'm thinking about, as far as their association with the children of the forest, you would have thought that the war kings would have had a greater association with the children of the forest, and they would have been the ones to rule the day and become the kings of winter. But it wasn't them. It was the Starks for some reason. And like I said, it could be because they're more vicious or more stubborn or whatever, or Starks themselves, they probably mingled with the children of the forest as well.
Okay. So yeah, you believe that they have an association with these houses, and basically the culminating point is, you're assuming that this is all before the long night, and that, how can I put it? The Kings of Winter weren't of a like, in order to make someone your vassal, it's either you have to fight them or they pledge fealty to you, such as Jojen and Mira Juchabaran. I don't know whether you're implying that it's only because they fought them, or is it because that?
What I'm saying is there's a reason for the Starks being chosen for that fate, when by all rights you would have thought that one of the Ward Kings or someone that's so closely associated with the children of the forest, more so than the Starks, and their champion during the long night. And instead
Okay.
it is a Stark.
Okay, I get what you're saying. It's just like you had options. That's what you're saying. Okay. Like, why was it just
exactly?
the
The children, Yeah, the children of the forest had options out there of other people they could have chosen for their champion, but they chose the Starks to become the kings of winter and to guard, and they have done that. Even, you get the Ironborn, but that's something that goes on all the time with us within the North. You get the Red Kings, but they had options besides the Starks, and they chose the Starks.
Yeah, I mean, I something. Okay. Yeah, I think that when we're talking about the it seems like, the Crannogmen are small. They're not warriors like the Starks are. They're not men. I think that's why. I mean, the Crannogmen are pretty ruthless, and they're really cunning, and they're very cool. Techniques are so cool. But I think they're more bogs and crannogs in with their nets and spears, and the kings of winter are just, there's a quote that you read right at the beginning: harsh men in harsh times, hard times. So I think that's really the difference, and that
Also,
they did conquer nearly every house. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking, now that I think about it, the size of the people, being that the children of the forest were overwhelmed by the size of the first men, and the Crannog men possibly being smaller. Maybe that's why they went with the Starks. That's a good point to bring up, too. Thank you for that, Ashley.
Yeah, I think that the Crannogmen are just really cool, and that really is the only reason, I can see why. There was something that I to bring up when we were talking about, well, I guess we're still there, where it has to do with the Royces and Runestone. Not to just take off from the Crannogmen, we can go right back, because I have something that Asha said that I'll talk about after this. But there's something called the Nori Nora, which is a rune stone that's interpreted as having it has an inscription on it, and it's that seals the spirit into this Draugr. It has runes on it, and it's used to keep them in the grave. So what's really interesting about it is, in Icelandic sagas, is there's instructions that upon someone's death, a hole was to be cut in the wall closest to where the corpse was, and the body was to be removed from the house through the hole. It was believed that if a dead person was carried through the front door, then the ghost would remember how to enter the house again. So you carried them backwards so that they couldn't see the entrance. Then there was a corpse door. Really reminds me of the 79 Sentinels. That is a special door that would be built, for which the corpse would be carried feet first, with people surrounding it, so it couldn't see where it was going. The door was then bricked up to prevent a return. It's also said the coffin should be lifted up and lowered in straight up and down. There's no way for them to get out. So I just thought that was like, whoa, that's the 79 Sentinels. And so it seems like iron, it's not just the way you protect the spirit from leaving the body. It's also front of Robert and Ned talking about killing a Targaryen while they're riding over the burial mounds, over graves, that it's something to do with the fact that, you know, they know that these people need to be burned in the South. They know in the North, burn, but they don't know how to keep them in except for iron. I found this really interesting that there is a stone in. And then the thing I wanted to say about Asha is that she said, kind of interesting about the Kings of Winter. And someone in the chat, I don't remember who it was, said, do you think Asha might be from Skagos? Because cool. And it would. When she's taking Bran when she's taking Rickon, they're down in the crypts, and Bran says, you know, the Kings of Winter they're so stern, they're so mean. She says, let me find it real quick. Sorry about the papers. She says that where is it? Okay, she says grim folk by the look of them. And Bran replies, they were the Kings of Winter. It says, Winter's got no king. Know that, summer boy. So, saying the Kings of Winter aren't even hardcore enough as Winter is, which I found really interesting, because isn't it the Kings of Winter who have always defended the North, defended the lands beyond the Wall? I thought it was really wild that Asha's a little bit like Old Nan to me. Things that she says, they stick with me, and they seem like they're...
Yeah, what is it? Like, I remember supposedly Dan and Dave said after George R. R. Martin watched the show and how many people liked Osha, he regretted not writing her anymore because everyone would have been attached to her. Yeah, she like when she talks about the comet or anything like that, like his green dream, she's like, I know you got them, boy. Like, yeah, I agree with that. She's very intuitive. She knows her stuff.
Yeah, dragons, boy, and nothing sweet. I love Osha. She's great. So that's really all I have to say about
okay. Sorry, Ash, I interrupted you.
Done.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, Nan kind of ruined my theory, but it's all right. I'll leave that part out because I'm just like self-conscious now. Thanks, Nan.
Sorry, Steffie. You told me to pick it apart. Sorry, should have done it that day.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So I'll just leave that little part out because now.
I do like the blue and the red and the blue lake turn into red and the queen's deal. All that was amazing. What you came up with on that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is about the Marsh Kings, and I'm just gonna say a few quotes, and then I'll kind of do a little rant. Okay. This is from A Game of Thrones, taking place in Catelyn's first chapter. The blood of the first men still flowed in the veins of the Starks, and his own gods were the old ones, the nameless, faceless gods of the greenwood. They shared with the vanished children of the forest. Okay. Next quote is, in A Dance with Dragons, Brand 3. It is given to a few to drink that green fountain while still in mortal flesh. To hear the whispering of the leaves and see as the trees see, as the gods see, said Jojen. Most are not so blessed. The gods gave me only green dreams. Okay, and then same chapter, Jojen to Bran. We live closer to the green in our bogs and crannogs, and we remember earth and water, soil and stone, oaks and elms, and willows. They were here before us all, and will still remain when we are gone. Now, the reason why I said these three quotes were because of green. Green, 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 and green. Jojen's eyes are green. They live in the greens, okay? He has green dreams. So for me, if they live so close to the green where they're from, which would be the Crannogs. Now, of course, with Mokanan, they tried to flood, the children of the forest supposedly tried to flood the neck, which means it wasn't always Crannogs. Like, now you can do it through scientific means and assume that there was just a big wave and it crashed, or the land crumbled away like the Iron Islands and stuff like that. But for me, if it wasn't always Crannogs, that would mean it was a greenwood. It wasn't a marshland, which would refer back to House Greenwood, which was supposedly extinguished by the Kings of Winter. So if I were to guess on who the Marsh Kings were, it would certainly be them. Also, you also have your blood makes you a green seer. This will help awaken your gifts and wed you to the trees. So if the Marsh Kings gave the daughter to the Kings of Winter, that is particularly associated with Bran's blood, which would, for me, mean that it's not particularly found in Jojen and Mira's blood, though, like I mentioned before, like there is a byproduct of the gift where you drink and eat it, and then there's another one where you're born into it, whether that's through a blood ritual, I guess we'll find out later on. But for me, it has to tie into that. Like, House Greenwood ruled the Marsh Kings area, for me personally. And that's it.
I really like that, Steffi, because I was just thinking about the colors, like I always do, and I thought of greenwoods, blackwoods. That's cool. They also ruled they're from the north. They were first men who were vanquished by the Kings of Winter, and they ruled the Wolfswood at one time. And so did the Blackwoods. Interesting that there's always an opposite. And greens too. That's right, because there was something about, was it not Cregan Stark, it was I can't remember who it was, but it was about the blacks and the greens, and they sided with the greens. I'm trying to remember what that was now. I think it was King Jonas Stark. I don't know. Maybe it was Cregan, because that's during the Dance of Dragons. But thing about how he sided with the greens, and then how they took, House Blackwood had to go south. So I wonder if they tie, or they do. Something popped into my.
Yeah, that would bring up the Dance of Dragons and like why they chose the name greens and stuff like that, like, and why they chose blacks. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I know what you mean. Also, it's got to. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say it's got to be more than just the dress color. It's got to represent more than just that.
Yeah, and I feel like you actually pointed out the Jojen and Miria fealty oath, and when, like, when I was writing this, before even, I was actually thinking of you and the stone, right? And like swearing by this and this and this and this. Like if you're gonna swear by the earth, which would be the mounds, and you're gonna swear by the stone, right? Like all these things come from certain areas almost for me,
Mhm.
and it kind of simulates perfectly like a combination.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me too, ladies.
Celtic mythology, there's almost always a stone to mark to a passage tomb. I know that there's a big thing that probably was what's his name that started it, Preston Jacobs, with his whole sci-fi thing. You know, people seem to be underground a lot or have underground passageways. I think it has more to do with the passage tombs. I think that's what they are, more than nuclear shelter or something like that. I think it has to do with spiritual ascension. I think it has to do with honoring the seasons, honoring the past, more than it does hiding. It will help later when the world is either flooded or on fire. Definitely help then. And we know the wildlings went underground in Molestown. I think that's a little foreshadowing of what'll come.
Yeah, sorry, I dipped out for a few seconds. So as soon as you said that, all I could think about was the Black River and like the Gendel and Gorn way. Like maybe that's where they're leading to. Maybe we're so like I was associating it with the Stark. Maybe it's not House Stark I should be associating with it, but House Dustin, where the Barrow Mound is, and where it's built. Like their Barrowtown is built upon it.
I think um,
Cool.
the thing is from Lord. I lost my train of thought.
I know how that feels. Yeah. Remember, Nan, or do you want me to take over till you remember?
Go ahead, huh?
Jojen was also dressed in green when they when they swore that pact to Bran. When I was writing that down for this.
And with that whole fairy tale thing too, I kind of feel like a Peter Pan-esque feeling when I think of Jojen. I know that's weird,
Oh,
but he's
yeah.
like
No, it's true.
like he's named Little Grandfather. It's almost like he's been living as a kid forever, like a child of like
Yeah.
a children of the forest would live forever. Like that's what I got from it.
You never know. He could be. He could be a lot older than he seems. We never really
Like
do. We ever get an age for Jojen?
he's young. His sister's 16. I think he's 13, and then Bran's 9.
Right. So we do. He does have a young age, but he could be.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much like as far as I see, so much. Not astral projection, but sort of like that. You know, shifting of consciousness and bodies that maybe there is someone else inside his mind a lot of the time. I mean, he has green dreams, but maybe there's something more to Jojen. He's such a cool character.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a little ticked off that they killed him like really early. They should have kept him in the show for like just a little longer. Like just to give him that like time of like explaining like all this like stuff to him with Leaf. I don't know.
I agree.
I'm also
Yeah,
a
I
huge
agree. I
I'm
think
also
Jojen would have been a better teacher than Leaf. Um, he, Leaf is having to tell him hard truths that here, like they had to create the White Walkers to protect themselves and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if Leaf and them have seen the error of their ways. And when, we talked too last week about Blood Raven and how much of Blood Raven is actually left and how much of it is um, a green seer taking over. So you just don't know with all this stuff. There's so many connections and so many different ways to so many different, not only mythology, history, the arcane, and even like we were talking about last week or week before about the first men and in the mini ice age that they had in Poland and Russia and all that. And they remind me so much of the first men from, in the Westeros. So there's so many connections out there, so many.
Agreed. Um, when it, people are probably wondering, but like every time, like the reason why I bring up Peter Pan, like all I just keep thinking of is Jojen and these Craноgs and living in the trees with his lost boys, and I don't know, it's weird. I just get that vibe from him. Like he's been living so long that all he wants to do is just. It kind of mimics that of Bran too a little bit in the story, where like all he wants to do is get the kiss, right, with like the thimble, right? Like I don't know.
But in the books, though, Steffi, they don't even actually say that Jojen's dead. They imply it, but they actually never say what happened to Jojen. So, there's still a little bit of mystery there. It's implied it's Jojen Pace, but what if it is just the werewood? What's happening to Jojen? He knows when he's going to die, but he never said anything to anybody if this was his type.
No, he didn't. And I actually came across something that made me think about that today. And it was that, there's all those bones in the cave. Bones of, we didn't really know, but bones of maybe past singers who are in the trees. They don't speak. And I don't know if Bloodraven hasn't been in the tree long enough that he can still speak, but it seems a little odd to me that Bloodraven can speak. He's growing into the tree, but comes across the other singers that are older, or maybe they can't open their mouths. It's like they've been in there so long. And the other part of it too is that also wondering if maybe there's something more to the don't stay under too long or you'll drown. That maybe there are some people who have stayed under too long that maybe were supposed to be the next Green Seer or the last Green Seer and stayed under too long. Part of me thinks Euron might even be one of those people. But it makes me wonder what exactly would happen if you stayed under too long. It's implied that you die, but I wonder if maybe those children whose bones are in the cave, if they didn't stay under too long and died. Or if it's something completely different.
That's just depressing. Like
really
like yeah, like almost like these children of the forest who like had the ability, just like were like, oh, this era was so much better, I'm gonna stay here, and then they're like, shit, I'm stuck now. Like so sad.
Yeah, but you know,
Oh,
the
it's
children
horrible.
of the children of the forest, what gets to me is they've been sitting in them trees all that time, listening to man's. How in the heck are they knowing what man's talking about if they don't know how to speak the language? Leaf was out 200 years learning the
Yeah.
language, but they're sitting there watching everything that's going on. You know, be somebody who could speak the language besides Leaf. If they've been in that tree that long, they should have learned the common language by then.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
But it's kind of like what Ashley's saying. They got stuck in memories. Like, who's to say that they're stuck in um like all the memories? Maybe they're just stuck in a part of it. Like, maybe, like, example, okay, so supposedly the first man killed a bunch of children of the forest. If these children of the forest are somehow related to them, and they had werewolves already scattered throughout Westeros, maybe they're looking at their family and they're just stuck in that particular time. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I get it. It's like when you're in a dream and it's not really a dream, but you don't want to wake up. You're reliving the past or whatever, and that dream is all you want to do. So they never, that don't really make sense to me either because of the long night and the fact that they know that there's another long night coming. You know, preparation, preparation, preparation. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, the chat's really got some cool stuff here. They're just talking about how maybe Sword in the Darkness said maybe that's how Bloodraven got caught in the tree. He stayed too long. He could very well be true. I always think of Brendan Rivers as such an intelligent man that he would know everything, but how could he? His turf, so to speak.
And also, Ashley, he could be being manipulated by the children of the forest as well. I mean, he's been manipulated by them all his life, evidently.
Right.
Everything in his life was laid out, and it's like his whole life, even down to him being sent to the watch, was an effort to get him to that tree that was bound to get him to that tree, if that makes sense.
It does make total sense. Yep. You're getting lots of compliments, Nan.
Well, let's don't forget to give a roll call on the folks that's out there.
Yeah, I
You
will do that
girls got
now.
control of that.
Wonderful. We've got our wonderful chat. You guys are the best. DJ11's here. Hi, DJ. Wait, Plexi's here. We love Plexi. Hi, Sword in the Darkness. And we've got Alan Vanderson. We've got James Clooney. We've got Iron Trone's here. Ahmed is here. Let's see. Eli's been here. Eli's been here for a while. Nice to see you, Eli, always. Cheeky's heart. Cheeky's tart. Cheeky, I don't know, Cheeky's tart. Say that. But it's a great name. And John Anaya. Great to have all you guys here with us. We love having you here. People with the best stuff. You really do. And Airtash was here for a minute. It's so late where he is, but here for a while too. I don't know if he still is, but thanks for being here, you guys. You're the best. Oh, and Septashina's Sapphires. So thank you, you guys. Really, you're the best.
Yes, thank you. You make it all worthwhile, and we certainly do enjoy it. Ladies, you wanna got anything else you wanna talk about before we do our sign offs?
Fun of me, DJ. Oh, yeah, I'll have anything else. Do you? I'm done. I think Steffi is too. So, um, oh, JD's here too. So thanks you guys for being
Bless your
here so
hearts.
much. Yeah, bless your hearts. We love you so much. You're so brilliant, and your questions are the best. Lexi, I'm gonna have to go over your questions and write them down because they're so good. I want to answer them all. They're great. Do that. Thanks for being here. Anytime. I haven't made a new video for quite a while, but if you'd like to check out my channel, it's The Iron Underneath. You can understand that. I've had weeks, so I can barely talk, but thank you for being here with us. Love having you. It's always great to be here with my
Steffi.
ladies.
Thank you, hon. Steffi.
Yeah, it was a great conversation as always, ladies. Sorry, I'm putting on like a band-aid on my finger. I would show you what my finger looks like right now, but it's pretty gnarly. I heard it at work today. So yeah. Off topic, but it was a great conversation. Thanks for the chat for showing up. Yeah, every other Tuesday, just come and join us. As for what I talked about tonight, I'm gonna post it because I don't speak as well as I write. It's I don't know why that is. It's just my ums and ahs. Maybe they're a Canadian trait. I don't know, but it gets muddled. And so I'll be posting what I've written about that stuff. But yeah, just like great as always. And thanks everyone.
We do thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is Old Nan, and I'm usually here at Old Nan on Game of Thrones. Got a few videos out there, not much, but I hope that you like them, check them out, and come back, like Steffi said, in 2 weeks, and we'll do this again. God bless you all.